In 6 minutes starts now.
Chuck Malamut is next.
He upset Democrats and his fellow Republicans. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
This is a bad day for the United States of America.
Senator Chris Van Hollen and other Democrats called President Trump believing Russian President Putin's denials about meddling in the 2016 campaign a disgrace. Republican Senator Bob Corker said it
made us look as a nation more like a pushover.
And Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer wondered about
the possibility that President Putin holds damaging information over President Trump.
Now, the president, who will meet with House Republicans later today talking about tax reform, is defending himself. Fox's Rachel Sutherland, live in Washington.
Dave, President Trump pushing back on his critics, telling Fox's Sean Hannity the media are laser focused on the Russia probe.
Talking about all of these different things, and we get questions on the witch hunt.
The president also adamant that Russia is not holding anything over his head.
I guess he said as strongly as you can say it, they have no information on Trump.
President Trump also tweeted that he has great confidence in his intelligence people, but added, as the world's two largest nuclear powers, that the U.S. and Russia need to get along. Dave.
I'm Rachel. Vladimir Putin again denied meddling in our politics, talking to Fox's Chris Wallace.
And it's quite clear to me that this is used in the internal political struggle, and it's nothing to be proud of for American democracy.
Now, a Russian woman was charged in Washington yesterday with conspiring with Moscow to infiltrate conservative groups like the NRA, acting as a Russian agent. Volcano tour operators in Hawaii say they still plan to operate off the Big Island shore, but will stay farther away. After that happened on a boat yesterday, a lava flow from Kilauea exploded into the sea, sending molten rock through the boat's roof right off the shore, injuring 23 passengers. This is Fox News, fair and balanced.
All money managers may seem pretty much the same. But while some money managers may recommend high-commission investment products, Fisher Investments avoids them. Some money managers may have hidden and layered fees. Fisher Investments never does. And while some money managers are happy to earn commissions from you, whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. In other words, we're structured to be on your side. Maybe that's why most of our clients come to us from other money managers. Talk with us and find out why so many experienced investors are switching to and staying with Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments, clearly better money management. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. Visit us at FisherInvestments.com to find out what we can do for you.
Swift and sweeping condemnation from Republicans as well as Democrats has met President Trump's defense of Russian President Vladimir Putin over Russian election meddling. Trump appeared to side with Putin over his own intelligence officials. Dozens were hurt in a crash involving 5 school buses in Medford Lakes. The buses were picking up kids at a JCC camp in Medford Monday afternoon. Police say all the injuries appeared to be minor. A woman visiting the Jersey Shore from London impaled by a beach umbrella in Seaside Heights. Police say a gust of wind grabbed the umbrella, driving it right through 67-year-old Margaret Reynolds' ankle. Fire crews had to use bolt cutters to free the woman before getting her into an ambulance. The Murphy administration looking to add 6 more medicinal marijuana dispensaries across the state. Ken Wolski with the Jersey Coalition for Medical Marijuana says it's welcome news. Medical weed is now being prescribed to treat
chronic pain for musculoskeletal issues and chronic pain for of visceral origin, which is, any internal organ in the body.
He says medical marijuana is also being used now to treat a wide variety of anxiety issues. I'm Eric Scott. This is the Town Square News Network.
A flash flood watch goes into effect later this morning for most of New Jersey as we do have some heavy rain on the way. This morning stays quiet, though. Mostly sunny, very warm and very humid. We will see high temperatures popping to around 90 degrees. Our line of thunderstorms will arrive from late this afternoon into this evening. The biggest concerns, heavy rain leading to flooding, frequent lightning, and maybe some damaging winds. Rain and storms will exit by midnight tonight, then will clear out and dry out, lows in the 60s. Tomorrow and Thursday look great. Sunshine, not humid, highs in the 80s. I'm meteorologist Dan Zero.
From Harry Hurley Way in the world's playground to the broadcast pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame.
I want to congratulate my friend, Harry Hurley.
You're about to find out why Harry Hurley has been named to the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important talk show hosts in the nation. Live from the studios of Town Square Media in Northfield, it's Hurley in the Morning on WPGG Talk Radio 104.1.
Hey, thanks very much, and thank you to John Zarek. That was so educational. Chuck Malamut is here. This program is presented by Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck Malamut and do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast and are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member SIPC. Chuck, how are you, my good man?
Good morning, Harry. Before we get started, excellent hour. It was if you were thinking about going on the left side of the road instead of the right side of the road, or going on the dark side, I think some of the points that John made, clearly you want to be on the straight and narrow, because we know of some local cases that we won't talk about, but the federal government, if you owe money, they want the money, they want to be paid, and that's sort of one of the privileges of living in this country, and that's something that I think some people try to take advantage of, and unfortunately, I think you get caught at some point in time. It's a matter of what magnitude and how devastating it would be.
And John outlaid a number of ways. You could have a business partner turn you in. You could have a disgruntled employee, or just an employee that doesn't like what they see. You could have so many different ways where people might think they could get away with something. Somehow, some way, it's going to come back and bite you.
Yeah, it is, and it's. Every industry, in our industry in particular, it's there's a lot of compliance out there, and rightfully so. And if all you need to do is just do the right thing. It doesn't seem it seems easy for us to say that, but I think some people really struggle with that.
Chuck, I know you want to begin with your market update, which I always love you to do first. But let me just entertain me with an item that's sort of in your topics for today's show, but not by specific title. Atlanta Fed has hiked the second quarter GDP view to 4.5%.
Yeah, we were going to. I actually
was
was going to cover that a little bit later.
You want to do it later?
Yeah, if we could, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
So as far as a market update, it's amazing. We're in the throes of second quarter earnings, and no sooner do you get prepared for our show during part of the day on Monday and the Monday evening, and of course. We're in the throes of Q2 earnings, and a favorite of all of ours, one of the FANG stocks. I'm not going to say anything that people don't know about Netflix. Their subscriber base their new subscribers was under the forecast, and as you oftentimes say, there was a company that one of your favorites that you thought was getting picked on because of a miss, but. And that's the folks that make your phones.
Yep.
But as it turns out, there was a miss, and that stock today is, pre-market or after the close yesterday was off about 15%.
I think there's a reason for that particular one, and they should have stayed out of it, but they treaded into political areas, and they've had cancellations, and I think it's hurt additional revenue that they would have generated, and it's once again an example of. There's a movie that's out right now about it's a Rob Reiner movie. It did $41,000 in an opening weekend, where there's some Transylvania 3 cartoon that did $44 million in the same weekend. I just believe when you get the politics involved in things.
I'm going to say it might be a little bit different. A year ago, there was as they dropped the content, as you drop the content for a season. So you can sit there and binge watch, 8 or 10 episodes,
which everyone loves.
There was a program called 13, and it was a big hit. It's something that you don't want a child, ages 12 to 18 watching by themselves. It's rather depressing, but there was nothing that got dropped in Q2 that drew that same sort of viewership. But that happened.
For example, House of Cards was delayed, or it would have dropped in the second
so
quarter.
I think that we're not going to sit here and criticize or analyze a particular stock, but that does happen.
Yeah.
So,
but I also think that I'm onto something.
Well, we're in different lanes. So anyway, let's get back to the market update. Equities last week, a fair amount of volatility. They and a lot of discussion with trade tension. So as a result of that, sort of flattish. International markets did perform better than domestic for the week. Crude was off about 2.5%, for the week. But as it turns out, the U.S. initiated the process that's going to lead to the likely tariffs on an additional $200 billion coming from Chinese imports by the end of August. Now you hear the rhetoric that this is more bark than bite. But now what is happening, a lot of imported automobiles are going to be faced, I think I saw on average, Harry, cost about $5,800, as these tariffs go into play. So the Chinese currency at the same time weakened, our U.S. dollar strengthened. Commodities are bearing the brunt of these heightened trade disputes. Metal and oil last week were off sharply. Brent crude had their worst day since February 2016 last week as well, and last Wednesday. So, part of that might be profit taking. We've had strong gains year to date. As a result, energy equities did lag. But I think that, we are now clearly in the throes of Q2 earnings. Some of the banks were good, some were not so good. There's been a lot of discussion around the banks, and they have not participated in the upward bias that we've seen in the equity markets so far this year. So there is some concern about that. We did briefly talk about Netflix. This morning Johnson & Johnson came, they beat. So on average, what is happening? Earnings are up by roughly 20% year over year, and that doesn't come unexpected. I think the problem is that
hard earned, though, hard fought.
Yeah, it is,
different year.
Analysts are expecting the S&P Q2 earnings to increase by roughly 20% compared to the same quarter a year ago. Sales are
shouldn't that be considered phenomenal?
Yeah, sales are projected to grow about 8.5%. First quarter earnings that we've talked about, for quite some time, were up almost 25%. Earnings advanced 8.5%. But remember, in our world, sometimes it's the glass is half empty versus half full. And as a result of that, I said, okay, so now you book great Q2 earnings. Looking forward to Q3, 4, and as we get into 2019, how are you going to increase your earnings or grow your earnings accordingly? Now, believe it or not, I've seen some projections for Q2 2019, which we're not even through Q3, that Q2 next year earnings will grow year over year about 8%. So what happens is that kind of throws cold water onto the rally, as we'll call it, because I think you always have to be a little suspicious.
Didn't the Fed chair or one of the members of the Fed actually, I think it was the Fed chair, actually say that they foresee good numbers for the next 3 years?
They do, yeah. We're
talking 3 years.
And talk about rate hikes, we'll get a little off track here, but they're talking 2 more for this year and potentially 3 for 2019. So it's a matter, they have a very, very fine line. They sort of walk that tightrope because they don't want to get to the point where, everything slows down as a result of what the Fed's actions are. One of the concerns that we have is with respect to inflation and what is happening. Consumer prices increased at their fastest pace in this past June, up almost 3% year over year. Producer prices increased about 3.5% versus a year ago. So while inflation seems rather muted to all of us at this point in time. The figures that the Fed is seeing, we're pretty confident they're going to stay on that track of 2 this year and 3 next year. But the one thing that we have to be concerned about is that if things go astray, and it's sort of counterproductive. Well, you want prices to increase. I think we all benefit by that because of higher wage growth, but that ultimately could signal higher or more Fed rate hikes than anyone had anticipated. If that does in fact happen, that's something I think that all of us need to be concerned about with respect to the markets.
First break. We're going to be right back. You're listening to Chuck Malamut, the official exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. And every Tuesday morning for the past 27 years, we've done this program with Chuck in the 8 o'clock hours. If you want to reach Chuck, his group, the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. Chuck is the managing director of his group. You can reach them at 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs, 609-383-2010. We're also brought to you this hour by Harbor Pines Golf Club and Estates, owned by the legendary Gerwick's family. Stand Up for Comedy Night is right around the corner, Saturday, July 28th. Showtime is 8 p.m. The doors are going to open at 6:30 p.m. There's some optional light fare menu stuff. It's going to be very, very nice. Reduced adult beverages. So you'll have happy hour pricing all night long. Advanced ticket sales are required, and they're available from the online store at harborpines.com. Your featured comedians, Scott Friedman, Eric Potts, Latisse, and Jimmy Graham III. Nice lineup. Saturday, July 28th, showtime 8 p.m., $25 per person. Harbor Pines Golf Club and Estates presents Comedy Night, stand-up comedy night at Harbor Pines Golf Club. We'll be back with Chuck Malamut in 2 minutes.
The Auto Plaza at English Creek. Roll with Mr. Tire.
This is Harry Hurley, and I'm with the Mayor, Charles Kane, owner and operator of the Auto Plaza, Egg Harbor Township. Mayor, tell your listeners who are looking for a car, why should they choose the Auto Plaza?
Harry, it's our full-service department, selection, and hassle-free financing alternatives that have set us apart for over 17 years. Over the years, we've been the recipient of many sales and service awards, as well as receiving an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. It's been a real honor for us. We are now serving a second generation of sales and service customers. Stop in today. You're going to love our staff and experience what makes us different.
For all of your automobile service, parts, and sales needs, call the Auto Plaza at 609-646-2447. That's 609-646-2447. And visit us on the World Wide Web at myautoplaza.com.
The Auto Plaza at English Creek. Roll with Mr. Tire.
Hello, beautiful. I'm Amy Errett, founder of Madison Reed, a hair color company I named after my daughter. One of the things I value most in life is time. Time to spend with my daughter, time to spend with family, and the time I put into my company that's reinventing the way women color their hair. The busiest, most successful women I know use Madison Reed, the amazing hair color hack. In under an hour and for less than $25, Madison Reed delivers gorgeous, shiny, multi-dimensional, healthy-looking hair with an ammonia-free formula. You'll look like you just came from a salon, but the reality is you have more me time to do what you love. Things get busy. Let us take care of you and your hair. Find your perfect shade at madison-reed.com and get 10% off plus free shipping on your first color kit. Use code HELLO. That's code HELLO. Try it. Love it. That's the beauty of Madison Reed.
Hi, remember this is Tony Orlando with Hurley in the Morning. Keep listening.
We'll tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. Hurley in the Morning.
We're back. It's 19 minutes past the hour. Chuck Malamut continues. So we've done the update. You've done your market update. You've talked about Q2 earnings. You talked about inflation ticking up higher in June. This next item is something that we talk about on the Hurley in the Morning quite a bit, and that is that our beloved nation, the United States of America, is on tap to become the top oil producer in the world beginning next year. That's amazing, isn't it?
So, Harry, I read this, and then, as we get prepared with our show content, there's certain things that we will use and certain things that we will not use. And I thought for sure
it's a good one.
We'd want to use this one because it's one of your favorites. What is happening here, we believe by 2019, according to a forecast by the U.S. Energy Information Administration that came out last week, the U.S. is going to be the world's largest oil producer by 2000, a year from now. So this survey projects that the U.S. is going to produce on average about 11.8 million barrels of crude a day next year. That will surpass both Saudi Arabia and Russia. And there's been all kinds of discussion about Russia and Germany and oil and movement, and we're not going to go in that lane right now because I think you've covered it already, or we'll cover it again as the day unfolds. But U.S. production in June averaged this year about 10.9 million barrels a day. The last time that we actually led the world in oil output was many, many years ago. It was in 1974.
How about that?
So,
right before the oil embargo.
Correct.
Ooh, I remember my odd and even plates, and we could only get gasoline. I had an even plate. I still remember it. 190 ANA was and I was on the even day because of the zero, and those were crazy, crazy times. What about this, Chuck? Because I thought this didn't make sense to me. I know that the prices ticked up a bit. Then it kind of came back down a little bit in the last several weeks. And so it's settling right now. It seems to be about $2.83 in this part of southern New Jersey for a gallon of unleaded gasoline. I was hearing that there was actually a hue and cry to tap our strategic petroleum reserves. That didn't seem like we had a crisis. Did you hear about that?
No, Harry, but I don't think
that didn't make any sense to me.
But I think you need to put this in perspective. So, I think we're actually pretty fortunate when when you think about what is happening. The price of crude. Last week it went out at $71.02. A year ago, we were at $46.06. That represents an increase of over 50%.
This is one of the first times, Chuck, that I can recall. Maybe it's been this way, and we just didn't follow it like we have for the past, I don't know, at least 10 years that we have really followed this very closely with you. I can't say that we always followed this for the first 17 years of your show here, but I've been following oil and the prices and what goes on for a long time. They did not pass it on the way that they usually do.
So what has happened on the same comparative basis year over year, the price of unleaded nationally as of last week was $2.86. A year ago was $2.30. So that represents an increase of almost 25%.
But if they passed it all on, it would be significantly more.
We obviously threw $3 and $3 plus. So, I mean, there is a silver lining, so to speak. Now,
is it also helpful? It appears that President Trump either met with or had a conversation with the Saudi king, and they're opening up this spigot. The ministers, OPEC ministers, tightened the spigots too.
Correct. So I don't think that hurts. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just sort of something to think about.
What will it mean when we're the top oil producer? Because we import a lot of our oil.
Well, Harry, I think put in perspective here. So we think we'll be at 11.8 million barrels next year. Right now we're at what I said 10.9. So it is higher, but it's not significantly higher. So we're still going to need to import.
But would it ever make sense for us to have more refinery capacity and to actually keep our oil as opposed to exporting most of it?
I think it's a matter of how and where it needs to travel. You think about moving from Alaska down to a refinery, and the amount of time and cost to move that and then ultimately refine it versus importing. And I think that's sort of something that we have been thinking about for many, many years. But while we would like to say, quote, we're energy independent, I'm not quite certain we're gonna be there in its entirety.
We could be if we wanted to be, though. I would think.
I think you'd have to expend a lot of resources, and I think everything that's going on in this country today,
it's just not worth it.
I don't think. Well, I want to say it's a priority. I don't think it's the first priority.
It's a good comment, fair comment. The economy, economic growth, is picking up, isn't it?
So, as you know, we got off to, kind of a slow start, relatively speaking, in the beginning of the year. Economic growth seems to be picking up, and it's something that you just kind of talked about. The labor market in particular has been a source of strength. Unemployment, did drop to 3.75% in May. It's the lowest level that we had since December 1969. We did move higher in June.
4.1.
But I think you think about it. It's a matter of
we're actually entering the work.
The denominator is higher than it was a year ago as more people are entering the workforce. I mean,
and we do actually have more jobs available than people looking for jobs.
That's correct. So what also has happened, consumer spending, has improved. May retail sales were up about 0.8%. That was the fastest pace we've seen in 6 months. We think second quarter GDP, real GDP, is going to be close to around 4, and around 3 for this whole second half of 2018. So what's sort of dragged here a little bit is the growth internationally has trailed off, especially in Europe and China. So the index of leading economic indicators shows here that we're gaining strength here in the U.S., but seems to be slowing somewhat throughout most of the developed world. But having said all that, the global economy, still continues to grow. So, domestically, we certainly are looking a lot better today than we were 6 months to 12 months ago compared to what is happening outside of the U.S.
2-minute break. We're going to come right back with one more power segment straight ahead. Among other things that we'll be talking about, the state of capital expenditures, economic growth, and inflation, what's happening with the bond market. I do want to get Chuck to give us a comment about the Atlanta Fed increasing the GDP for the second quarter. If I didn't say it, what's happening with the bond market, equity market, how are things going? Are we getting anywhere? Are we just treading in place? And where do we go from here in terms of the equity markets? A lot more to discuss with Chuck Malamut. You're my official financial advisor here on the Hurley in the Morning program, 609-383-2010, 609-383-2010. To reach Chuck Malamut, managing director of his group, the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, and they can help you with all aspects of your financial planning. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Paul D'Amato. Harry Hurley. Paul, I know our listeners want to know what's new with the D'Amato Law Firm.
Things are great, Harry. We are so privileged to represent our clients whose lives have been turned upside down because they were involved in a serious accident. We meet on a regular basis. We copy our clients on all our correspondence so they always know what's going on with their case. We try to treat them like family. We have Alexa here, my daughter. I'm so happy that she's here. We have Steve Van Natten and Casey Gifford. We're a great legal team.
They're the D'Amato Law Firm for all of your personal injury legal needs. Turn to the official lead counsel to the Hurley in the Morning program for more than a quarter of a century. The D'Amato Law Firm in Egg Harbor Township, 609-926-3300. That's 609-926-3300. Tell Paul, Alexa, Sandy, the entire team that Hurley in the Morning sent you.
This is a special notice to all U.S. taxpayers. If you owe the IRS or state back taxes and cannot afford to pay them back, there's good news. Due to the financial hardship many are facing in today's economy, the IRS has made it easier to settle delinquent tax problems through a federal program called the Fresh Start Initiative. Qualifying for this program will resolve your tax problem, end all collections, and possibly reduce your back taxes by up to 90%. If you are facing wage garnishments, liens, bank levies, audits, or payroll payroll taxes, it's not too late. Your circumstances may qualify you for this special program, protecting your savings and your assets. If you owe the IRS or state back taxes and cannot afford to pay them back, there's no need to worry anymore. Call the hotline at Victory Tax Solutions to see if you qualify and potentially save thousands. For this free information, call 800-780-3232. 800-780-3232. That's 800-780-3232.
Hi, it's Brian Kilmeade. Join me next at 10, then Sean Hannity at 3. Now back to Harry Hurley on WPG Talk Radio, 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
Hey, thanks very much. Welcome back. 30 minutes past the hour. Chuck Malamut is here, the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. Chuck, the state of capital expenditures is?
Yeah, so Harry, it's been, believe it or not, this has been an area that's been overlooked. Companies that have been unwilling to commit to CapEx, as we refer to it, since the start of the current economic recovery. You think about it, as you and Kirk spent a lot of time criticizing me about the new norm. We're starting to see now companies are in fact spending money as it's referred to capital expenditure. It's risen sharply in 2018 as a result of a combination of the tax cuts and the changes with respect to the way capital expenditure is being expensed, on companies' balance sheets and P&L. So that, of course, increases company profits. There's obviously, as we talked about, there's been less regulation out there. The cost of borrowing is still low, relatively speaking, and the need to replace, old and unproductive capital equipment is also out there. So we think that this strength in this CapEx space is going to continue to bolster the economic expansion that we're living through right now. And it's, more importantly, it's that, it's all about productivity. So if we think about if we can put a new piece of equipment in and it increased productivity, what you referred to not too long ago in this program was there's more jobs than people. So if we can become more productive, then I think that's going to help, production levels as well throughout this country.
Very interesting. And so is the Charlie Falkenstein pretzel that I'm eating right now.
Is that what you're... I will. Listen. I
big bag.
I will tell So your listeners need to clearly understand. You do not eat during your show. Number one.
It's the one exception.
Okay. So, but I don't think that bag hit. It wasn't in here, but I'm going to say maybe Susie brought it here. It might have been here 30 seconds at best.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And this is where my brother, who's been my brother for like 40 years, would typically see that his little brother is chewing and would not have stopped talking, but you purposely did that because you knew I had just put in a wonderful, and it was the center knot. Usually I'll work my way to the center knot. I went right to the center knot. So in any event, our next area of focus is economic growth and inflation.
Yeah. So, Harry, I'll let you get back to your pretzels here. So as I
leave me hanging again.
As I take the mic back from you. So, what we've talked about is the wage growth is one of the concerns that we always think about when it comes to inflation, and wage growth has in fact ticked up slightly since the start of the year. As I mentioned here before, consumer prices also, have increased. So the May Consumer Price Index increased 2.8% year over year. Core CPI rose 2.2%. We think that those levels are going to be around 3 and 2.5% respectively at the end of the year. So that means nominal GDP growth is likely to be over 5%, Harry, 5% for all of 2018. So a combination of stronger growth, rising inflation, it forces the Fed, or they're going to obviously we think they're going to continue with their increasing interest rates. We've had 2 hikes so far this year. Markets are expecting another 2 before we get to the end of 2018, and possibly 3 additional in 2019. So, rising inflation and interest rates are not problems yet right now with respect to economic growth or the stock market, but certainly it's something that we need to be concerned about.
This is where I believe the Fed, and I know independent and all that, this is where they really, in my estimation, earn their keep. Because if they do too much, they're going to slow a beautiful economy down. I do believe they have an obligation to do enough, because to be in a typically healthy environment, we should be able to do these kinds of things, reasonable types of increases, 25 basis points maybe at a clip, this kind of thing. But if they do too much, what do you talk about all the time? It's very hard, the difference between too hot, too cold. It's challenging.
So you think about what's happening with longer rates versus shorter rates, and the curve is very, very flat right now. And I don't like to use the word inverted, but think about the 10 years we know it is currently stuck. It broke through that 3% level in May, but was only there for a very, very short period of time. It's retreated back below under 3. At the end of the second quarter, the 10-year was at a 2.86. So we've been very range-bound. We've been between roughly, it seems like over the last 45 days or so, 60 days, 280 to 290. We really haven't moved. So as a result, bond prices in the second quarter, lost ground. The U.S. Ag Bond Index was down 0.2% for the quarter, off 1.6% for the year. Yields are being held back by, low interest rates, not so much here in the U.S., but what's happening overseas. And again, that ongoing risk aversion with respect, among as far as investors are concerned. So we think there's going to be pressure, put on this 10-year. And we think that as we get to the end of the year, we're going to be, pushing through that 3%. But you think about it, it's pretty inconsistent. The longer end of the curve is not moving as much on the shorter end of the curve, and as a result of that, investors are now being rewarded for having their money invested in shorter-term instruments. And I mean,
so why would you do differently? You wouldn't.
Well, because you never know when it ends. I mean,
right.
and the concern is that you want to have in a balanced portfolio. You look at your cash or your cash equivalents. And, on our side, what we do all day long, there are avenues to increase, money that is in very liquid investments where you're getting virtually no return, to getting returns, about, short-term liquid money, roughly 1.8% right now. So I think there's a lot to be said for that.
What's happening with the bond market?
Well, that's we pretty much.
Anything else happening with the bond market?
No, I think Harry, that's pretty much it. I mean, if like I said before, don't be surprised if we in fact get through, and over that 3% barrier, and that's sort of that push pull, because what's happening is that you would have expected by now. We went through 3. Everyone was saying 3.25, 3.5, and actually the opposite happened. It backed off into that. I think below at a 2.75.
Does the Fed actually? Why I stretch this bond market question for a second round is: does the Fed try sometimes to encourage more long-term investing? Would they prefer someone investing for 10 years as opposed to 1 year? What are your thoughts?
Well, Harry, I don't think the Fed really is terribly concerned about what individual investors.
So they don't care short-term, midterm, or long-term investing?
No. Okay. No, I think that, at the end of the day, the Fed, they're all eyes on inflation, all eyes on economic growth, all eyes on the economy, all eyes on unemployment or employment, all eyes on wage growth. I mean, That's what they're looking at. They profess and they claim that they're they really don't care about how the market trades. Now, in academic world, I would tend to agree with that fact, but I think they do care, and I think
I was going to say,
I think they do watch.
I think they care, and I think they do certainly watch, and maybe more than just care and watch, maybe act. The equity market, are we treading in water? Are we getting anywhere? What's happening?
Well, Harry, I think as long as the U.S. economy continues to expand and earnings continue to improve, we think equities still have additional gains. And the question at hand is: are we in the 8th inning of a 9-inning game, or are we in the 6th inning of a game that's going to go extra innings? And the question is, how long will the economy expand? The lead time between the yield curve inversion, that's something we've talked about of late, and the peak in stock price is about 9 months. So think about the curve is flat. The curve is not inverted. If it does invert, that's something that we need to think about. It takes about 9 months after a peak in stock prices, before the onset of inflation. So you have another 9 months after that. The yield curve's flattening, but hasn't inverted yet, as I mentioned before. But we think there could be an inversion in the yield curve, Harry, in the first quarter of 2019.
Well, that would then mean that a recession follows?
That would mean that could translate potentially into recession in the middle of 2020. There's other issues. There's mounting credit issues out there. There's faster moving inflation.
Is anybody ever going to pay attention to this educational bubble? This trillions in student loans and things?
They should, but it seems like that sort of is.
Nobody talks about it.
It's not a priority,
Yeah.
But I think it obviously is a priority. So I think what we need to concern ourselves with is that again, that the inversion of the yield curve. What happens 9 months after that, and what happens 9 months after the first 9 months? So so again, are we in the 6th inning? Are we in the 8th inning? Is it a 12-inning game? We don't know that.
Surprised that? And correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe this is just I don't know this, but I think I know it. The markets don't seem to be that affected by all this trade stuff, and some of this trade stuff has been really. I mean, think about it. So many multiple nations. And then the response, like if we hit Canada, they hit us with 3,000% on these different things. I think the markets have been incredibly stable.
They've been resilient.
Yes.
But the concern is if there is an escalation in these trade issues, because it seems it takes front and center and grabs all the headlines and rightfully so. But if the trade issues are escalated, it could push the time forward, meaning that the inversion of the yield curve could happen faster than anticipated. The slowdown in the equity markets could happen, faster than we anticipated as well. So I guess, Harry, it's something that while the market has done a really good job sort of shrugging it off for now, it's something that is constantly being, talked about. We talked about corporate earnings. If they continue on this pace, that's going to obviously help the market. As far as the equities are concerned, we think they're pretty much range bound. We have been this year as low as 25.32 in the S&P, and the high has been 28.75. And that might represent the lows and the highs of this year. Our chief strategist, Mike Wilson, got very defensive last week and did some asset allocation shifting. And, I think his best case scenario of a 3,000 S&P, I think he kind of walked that back a little bit. So one thing we got to think about, our stock's going to, end up piercing either the low or the high barriers at this point in time. We think a breakout on the upside is more potentially going to happen than on the downside. We've had strong tailwind of corporate earnings, but we need these sort of headwinds to ease a little bit particularly when it comes to these trade-related issues.
Let me slip in one more GDP question, because I did mention at the beginning of your show, Chuck, and I know we're towards the end right now, and I do have one last question, but this one I want to slip in as a bonus question. The Atlanta Fed has raised the second quarter GDP view. They've raised it to 4.5%. This is up from 3.9% just in 8 days between July 11th to July, actually fewer than 8 days, to July 16th. They will next issue what they call their GDP Now update tomorrow. 4.5% GDP would be incredible.
Yeah, so I think, Harry, what I mentioned is, a little bit earlier, it was, potentially being at 5% as we get to the end of the year. So I think that's good, and I think the potential issues come with that as well. Does the economy heat up too quickly? And then ultimately, increasing prices, increasing inflation.
But if it heats up too quickly, the Fed is going to raise interest rates.
Well, look, it's sort of in the books. Two times this year, potentially 3 times next year. So I think the market's prepared for that. If they go 3 this year and 4 next year, or whatever it may be, I think the market's not prepared for that right now, and that that could cause some consternation in the equity markets.
What I'm most thrilled about, and it's not geopolitical to me, Chuck, you know me for a lifetime. After 242 plus years, America shows that it still works. Our concepts work. When businesses and our capitalist foundations are permitted to roar, look at what's possible.
Harry, I think you're absolutely right, and it really warms my heart as I travel, through the state and out of state to go to visit with clients and prospective clients, and you're off the interstate, and you are on these 2-lane roads getting to your destination, and you see a number of times, the signs posted "Help Wanted."
Yep.
And in the windows of these various businesses, and I don't think, Harry, we haven't seen this in a long time.
Well, it's the greatest employment market, I think, in American history, and it's everyone's participating, every ethnicity, every demographic imaginable. The other thing I just love about this, it's not proving people wrong, and I'm not saying present company included, because sometimes, tongue-in-cheek, you think I'm hitting you with that when I tease about the new normal. There were people that gave up on America, that we could no longer grow to these very typical levels that whenever we were in an upturn and in a good economy, we would consistently do this kind of 3+, 4+ type. Even George H.W. Bush, we were at 4.2%, maybe even been 4.6% GDP when they said it was the worst economy in 50 years. It's been great to see how this has rallied back.
Oh, absolutely, Harry. And I think that there's more to come. I'll leave it on this note. Oftentimes employees, are looking for more money and the rate increase. And believe it or not, this year so far, rate increases, wage growth for employees are not being done, that the company they're working for, because they are leaving.
They're leaving to go to another company that will pay them.
Correct.
But the beauty right now, and this is a very good point you're making, and we've been talking about it, Chuck, on Hurley in the Morning in segments where we're not doing the Malamut show, and that is literally employees are quitting where they are because they can get a job somewhere else. Employers are actually going to have to remember to treat their employees better again because they didn't have to.
Exactly. And I think that, I think that's a sign of the times, and that's, that's a good discussion.
It's a great discussion. I never like to see anybody taken advantage of, and this to me is a very healthy thing because employees could actually say, look, I want to stay. If you want to play hardball and say, look, I have this offer, it's this, I'd love you to match it. If not, I'm going to leave. And if you don't get into that, some employers don't like that kind of thing, then it's been great, see you later, and you're gone. There hadn't been any opportunities for a number of years.
Just be prepared if you do in fact say that to your current employer, that you do have the future.
I'm not saying bluff. Yeah, I'm not saying bluff. I'm saying you haven't.
That could work the wrong way, as you well know.
Yeah, but we're not talking about poker and you got a busted hand and you're trying to win the gold bracelet in the World Series of Poker. I'm saying if you do have it, you have, for the first time in quite a few years, probably more than a decade, I think the employee has the advantage right now.
They do. Absolutely, Harry. You're right. So, listen, thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure.
We'll be back again next week.
Did you get to address the issue of where we go from here?
We did.
Okay.
We were through
Just
everything,
making
yeah.
sure.
Uh-huh.
Good
All
to be
right.
with you, Chuck.
Thanks.
For all of your financial planning needs, turn to the official, the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, Chuck Malamut, the leader of the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck and the Malamut Group, 609-383-2010. 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Stay with us. Oh, if you want to jump in, this is, and we do have some callers standing by. We'll get you on right after the break. Hang in there. You'll be next. It's Hurley in the Morning on WPGG. Back in just a few minutes.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Atlanticare, a member of Geisinger.
I'm Robin Stoloff for Health Update. If you're planning a trip, it can be a challenge to eat healthy, but here are a few ways to stay on track. If you're going to the airport, be sure to eat a healthy yet filling meal before you get there to avoid having to eat at the fast food court. If you've got to eat there, go with fruit and a salad. If you're driving to your getaway, plan where and when you'll be stopping for meals before hitting the road. It will help you choose a healthier restaurant. And of course, pack your own healthy snacks such as fruit, nuts, yogurt, and granola, and bring plenty of water. Of course, we want to enjoy the good food on vacation, but we can be smart about it. If we have a huge breakfast one day, we can go lighter on lunch and dinner, and we don't need to eat dessert after every meal. We should also never go to a restaurant feeling famished. We're more likely to eat the bread, the butter, and everything else in sight.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Atlanticare, a member of Geisinger. Call 1-888-569-1000 or visit Atlanticare.org. Has your current sales job got you caught in a rut? Are you not making the money you know you're worth? It's time to tune into a new career. WPG Talk Radio 104.1 is adding full-time advertising executives to sell our full range of products. We're more than a radio company. We're the online advertising experts in South Jersey. Don't miss out on one of the fastest growing careers. Call Mike Rubel, Market President, at 609-645-9797 to schedule your interview. Town Square Media is an equal opportunity employer.
For nearly 40 years in the Ducktown section of Atlantic City at the corner of Arctic and Georgia Avenues, Angeloni's 2 Restaurant and Lounge has featured the finest Italian-American cuisine in Atlantic City, preparing all meals to order. Lunch is served Monday through Friday, dinner 7 nights a week. Mama Angeloni's reigns supreme on Sunday. That Sunday's abbreviated hours, certainly for the peak summer portion, at 4 p.m. for several hours every Sunday on a non-holiday Sunday. Mama Angeloni's 4-course, $25 dinner selections. It's absolutely incredible for groups of 10 or less. If you're a group of more than that, Alan will tailor something perfectly for your group. One other item, Mama Angeloni's is on a cash-only basis so that Alan could keep the price at $25. These merchant fees and the various rewards programs, exorbitant costs are passed on to the restaurant owner. So the credit card's good in Alan Angeloni's, just not for Mama Angeloni's.
Would you rather pay on your credit card debt 17% or less than 6% APR? The answer is obvious, Lightstream. Because with Lightstream, you may be able to consolidate credit card debt and dramatically cut your interest rate to as low as 5.89% APR with AutoPay. Plus, radio listeners get an additional rate discount. Just go to lightstream.com/now. With average interest rates on credit card debt at 17% APR, Lightstream could save you thousands in interest. And because Lightstream is a division of SunTrust Bank, one of the nation's largest and strongest financial institutions, you can have complete peace of mind. The application takes just minutes, and there are no fees and no pressure. Just lower rates, one low fixed monthly payment, and huge savings. So if you have good credit, apply today and get a special interest rate discount when you go to lightstream.com/now. That's lightstream.com/now. Lightstream.com/now.
Subject to credit approval. Rate includes 0.5% autopay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com for more information.
Hi, it's Brian Kilmeade. Join me next at 10, then Sean Hannity at 3. Now back to Harry Hurley on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
54 minutes past the hour. Dr. Mark Newkirk is on deck, and that always is with not an asterisk, because
it's not that often, but sometimes he is in surgery or something comes up and we reschedule. But he is on today's schedule for the first half of the next hour, and then wide open forum in the second half of hour number 4. A couple of quick programming notes. We have quite a week in store for you. Judge Janine will be with us on Friday. So we're actually moving Gary to the 8 o'clock hour because we have Judge Janine for a portion of the 9 o'clock hour. I still have to set that up with Gary. I've been meaning to do that. I'll do that today. And he's usually fine flipping it. We only do it once in a while. And we have some other really neat things that are happening this week. Friday is a big day. We're going to be filling in for Todd Starnes. So we will once again be on Fox News Radio national platform. So if you go to foxnewsradio.com between noon and 3, I'll be sitting in for Todd, and we'll be talking about various national issues. I want to bring a Senate candidate on who has had some incredible news in the last 24 hours. We'll get to that. Welcome to Hurley in the Morning. You're on the air.
Well, good morning. This is, in terms of two things, I would have asked Mr. Malamut about how the effects of raising interest rates is going to affect the real estate market in the foreseeable future. That was one question.
And we weren't freezing you out. I honestly didn't see you calling while Chuck was doing his show. Chuck does not take phone calls during his program. He doesn't have an aversion to it. It's just the structure of the program. I can get you an answer to that. But let me ask you a question, because you sound like a very smart guy. Do we need Chuck to answer this question? If interest rates go up, at the same time, in a booming economy, if property values are going up, and I was very pleased to learn that my home raised almost $10,000 in the past 30 days. So if values are going up and if interest rates are going up, isn't that a rather self-evident question?
Okay, so then...
Now let me ask you, what do you think that means? If interest rates are going up, and it's very I think it's unusual myself, and we've done a real estate program on this show for over a quarter of a century. Usually rates are low and prices might be going up, or as rates go up, prices might come down. We may actually see something along the lines of rates going up at the same time that prices are going up. Then the challenge remains, could the person at, say, 4.75 to 5%, 30-day fixed rate or 30-year fixed rate mortgage qualify for the mortgage that they may have been able to qualify at 4% or 4.25%. So you might actually have some buyers, and I also have a strong belief that many parents and many young adults are going to have trouble getting mortgages now and into the future, since they changed the guidelines to where that student debt it didn't used to count against your debt to equity ratio. Now there are people that can't even get a mortgage because of some of this stuff that's going on.
That was the thought that I was tendering.
Now, not to mention, let me throw one more element at you. The spigot really got tightened after the collapse with all these goofy ninja loans, no income, no job. Like, how could that go anyway? But in the second payment, you're 2 payments behind. If you don't have a job and literally no income, and they were giving out these 6-figure mortgages that by the second payment, you're now getting notices that you're 60 days behind because you have no shot of ever making the first payment. That was awful. But then what they did, they tightened it too much. And then they got ridiculous in some of the underwriting, just insanity. And a lot of that seems to be loosening responsibly so that it's not where it was in 2008, 2009, but it also isn't where it was for several years to follow. So I think if some of these things shake out, like this student debt, Parent Plus loans, and student 6-figure loans get figured out, and I don't know how it's going to get figured out, to be honest with you. That's above my pay grade. I just see, and I talk about it a lot with Chuck, I see sort of a perfect storm here that if you remember the dot-com bubble burst, I think that trillion-plus student loan bubble is going to burst at some point.
Well, I wanted to slide in one more topic, if we can do this.
You can do it.
I have a Dr. California brother, and the conversation generally goes to, well, Obama pulled your chestnuts out of the fire because he built upon the Bush economy, which was in tatters, and Trump inherited a rebuilt builded economy.
I know. That's all they got, and that's an empty wagon. Bang, 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 bang. No offense to your brother. I know you love him. But bang, 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 bang. The empty wagon, once again, is talking smack. Obama did something that's never happened in the history of this country. You can tell your brother this. The deepest downturn is always in the history of this country been followed by robust growth, except twice, FDR and Obama. And that's because they kept us in recession, deep recession, because of their policies. The quantitative easing was a disgrace. All the rounds that were required to just artificially prop up the economy. Isn't it interesting to note that's not required at this point? We're actually making it back in the free markets. Your brother is exactly wrong.
Yeah, it's gotten vitriol.
We're at the buzzer, and I have a guest. Call me again.
WPGG Atlantic City, WENJ 97.3 HD3 Millville. Everything you need to know in 6 minutes starts now.
Oh, that was riffing there. I wonder what Chuck Malamut thinks of his little brother.
On the agenda, I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, but will House Republicans who will meet with President Trump today bring up the Putin summit?
I did not think this was a good moment for our country.
And that is Senator Bob Corker, one of many Republicans joining Democrats critical of the president, appearing to believe the Russian leader's denials about interfering in the 2016 campaign. GOP Senator John Barrasso says,
I don't know what the president said to him privately, but I hope he has said, look, we know you did